Well.
So Patty has been after me to write books for years. I've got an English degree, and we both think it's kind of funny that Patty was first to market, so to speak, with a book. Well, I'm working on a couple.
I've been telling him for years and years and years.
So she's provoked me, and I'm working on a couple. And one is going to be about, sort of an expansion of the critical incident, post-trauma. How do you survive the aftermath of a trauma? I'm going to expand on the principles that are in the free PDF. It may or may not include more details about what happened to me that day. I've been working on that. I've been, really trying to get more details about that. But I'm also working on a Marriage Tips for Men ebook, and it's called Marriage Tips for Men: Rules of Engagement ... and Matrimony. And just lessons that I've learned over the years. Patty has trained me pretty well. Some of those lessons were hard to learn. I should have learned them. It took me way too long. You can quit nodding now, dear. And so my hope is, that the tidbits that I will share can maybe help some men not take as long as I did to learn those lessons, and so that they can hit the sweet spot in their marriage a lot sooner than we did, and they can have more time together in bliss. And so I'm going to give you a sneak peek tonight. I'm going to talk just a few minutes. We're about out of time. All of my rules are rule number 1. And I want to talk about this rule number 1 for just a few minutes. Forgiveness smells a lot like freedom. Forgive and be free. That's rule number 1 down at the hashtag Marriage Tips for Men. I have found people are reluctant to forgive, even in a marriage relationship, for a couple of reasons. There's 2 really categories of reasons, and the first one is, I think, a misunderstanding of what forgiveness is. People sometimes have this idea that for me to forgive a wrong that's been done to me, to forgive somebody who has done something wrong to me, is the same thing as saying what they did was okay. It's the same thing as saying it didn't hurt, it didn't matter, it was no big deal. When forgiveness really has nothing whatsoever to do with that. It doesn't mean it didn't hurt. For me to say I forgive you does not mean that what they did was right or okay or acceptable or no big deal. Really, when you look at the concept of forgiveness, if you trace it back to its biblical roots, which you should be doing, you want to know what the Bible has to say about it.
That's right. Forgiveness
is really a term, if you go back and look at the original languages, it's really a financial term almost.
Yeah.
And we still use it that way. We still use it that way in modern language. When you forgive a debt, right? That's a financial term. Well, that is the root of the word and of the action of forgiveness. Speaking of action, it is not an action of emotion.
Yeah.
You do not have to feel very forgiving to forgive someone. Forgiveness is an act of the will. Forgiveness is a choice. You make a choice to forgive. And basically, when you choose to forgive someone who has done something wrong to you, even something serious with consequences attached, you are making a conscious decision to say, I choose not to hold that debt against you. I choose to forgive the debt. What happens, people who withhold forgiveness often, and I don't know that they visualize this, but it's almost as if they think they've got the other person in a cage, like they're holding the other person hostage. The problem is even if they do have that other person in the cage, the cage is chained to their leg, to my leg. If I won't forgive, it's chained to my leg, and I have to drag it around everywhere I go. So that's the first reason people are reluctant to forgive, and it's because they misunderstand. They think forgiveness means it was okay. Forgiveness means it didn't hurt. Forgiveness means it wasn't wrong. When forgiveness actually means, as wrong as it was, as bad as it hurt, as not okay as it was, I choose to let it go. I choose to let go of the debt. I choose to forgive the debt and not be chained to it. I choose to be free from that.
Yeah, and it makes you free.
It really does. I thought about not mentioning this, but I'm going to mention it because it's kind of funny. I held a burden against my dad for a long time. I can't even remember why. I can't remember what it was. It wasn't, and trust me, let me tell you this, it wasn't anything. It really was probably nothing. But you know, my dad was a good dad. He didn't abuse me or anything like that. So it was nothing like that. And I remember when I learned that truth, somebody taught it to me. I started making the conscious decision and anytime those ill thoughts would come up, I'd say, no, I'm choosing to forgive. And a funny thing happened. I said forgiveness is not dependent on emotions, but forgiveness will bring your emotions along.
That's right. That's exactly right.
After a period, I don't remember how long, but after a period of making a conscious decision to say, no, I choose to forgive, eventually I felt like I forgave him, or forgave him.
Yeah.
So that's the first part of the equation of why people are reluctant to forgive. And the second part is this. They haven't contemplated how much they've been forgiven. If I'm reluctant to forgive, it's because I'm not being conscious of how much I have been forgiven.
Yeah. And you don't think your wrongs equal the same as the person that's wronged you. Right. When you're looking at what you've done to Christ.
Right. But so many times we make horizontal comparisons. Well, what I did is not nearly as bad as what that person did, but we need to be making vertical comparisons. And so I tell people this, when I've had an opportunity to counsel with people before who were in that situation where they were having difficulty forgiving, I would tell them, look at the cross of Christ and contemplate the depth of your sin that put him on that cross. And pray and ask God to give you a glimpse of the depth of your offense to a holy and perfect God that resulted in the cross of Christ. And boys and girls, when you get a glimpse of the mercy of Christ, that he poured out forgiveness on you as vile as you were, and we're all vile without the mercy of Christ. We're monsters of iniquity. We're not good people. He makes us into something special. But when you get a taste of the abundant mercy offered on the cross of Christ, how can you withhold forgiveness to anyone for anything?
Right.
There's the parable of the king who called a man in who owed him in the equivalent of today's money, I don't know, $200 billion, many lifetimes worth of salary. And the king just forgave it. He just forgave it and said, go. And on his way out, that man who had just been forgiven several lifetimes worth of salary debt run up on a guy that owed him $10 and he like to choke him to death. And the servants ran to the king and said, that guy you just forgave trillions of dollars or whatever, he just choked a dude that owed him $10. You know, that's the picture. And that doesn't, I'm not trying to minimize what's happened to you. If you're holding on to something, I'm not trying to minimize what happened to you. I know it hurt. I know it was wrong. But in light of the mercy of Christ on the cross, you need to forgive. You owe it to Christ to forgive. And you owe it to yourself because you will set yourself free. So anyway, I could go on and on and on. I'm just talking. But that's a little glimpse. Some of the rules you'll find in the book and some of the discussion of the rules are a little bit more lighthearted than that. But every now and then there's going to be a punch to the gut, because I needed a punch to the gut. And men folk sometimes need a punch to the gut. Sometimes we need a punch to the mouth. So anyway, forgiveness smells a lot like freedom. Forgive and be free.
Rock's Corner says, to love unconditionally, you must forgive unconditionally.
That's exactly right.
That's
you remember
good.
when Jesus said, he who has been forgiven much loves much.
Yeah.
You know that?
Yeah.
So when you find somebody who's unloving, especially somebody who claims to be a Christian, they're unloving, they're unforgiving, I immediately know, gee, that guy needs to be reminded how much he's been forgiven. You know?
1870s Homestead said they needed to hear that tonight. Thank you for sharing.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you. I needed to hear it.
Awesome.
We all need to hear it.
That's right. That's right. And we always got to remind ourselves, because sometimes it's not big things. Sometimes we allow resentments, we allow bitterness to creep in, and it's little things that we may keep something in our craw. You know, not real bad, but just a little bit. But those little things add up over time, just like the big things do. That we have to keep claiming forgiveness. We have to keep forgiving.
I'm gonna tell on myself right here. I still.
What'd I do?
No. I said I'm gonna tell on myself. I still don't. I think I was having a bad dream or something. But was it yesterday I woke up so bad? I woke up angry, and it showed. And I said something to Patty, and I'm glad neither one of us knows what it was in the kitchen. Or you remember? Because you said you couldn't remember.
No, you were just, I don't remember, you were short or
no,
something.
but I mean, it hurt her, and it offended her. And luckily, I can, because she's got that Persic face, I can tell. And eventually, I kind of figured it out, you know, and I thought, man, I can't. No, actually, I know what it was. As I began to kind of wake up and come out of it, I realized I was being a jerk. And I came in. I said, "Baby, I'm sorry. I've been so grouchy today." And I could tell she was hurt. And so anyway, you know, I throw that out there to tell you, it's not like we're not perfect people. I'm a sinner saved by grace. I'm still fighting that old man. One day I'm not gonna have to struggle with that anymore. And luckily, I don't wake up like that very often anymore. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Don't leave me hanging out there like that.
Yeah.
What do I do most of the time, especially if you wake me up on most mornings? When you come to wake me up. No, after that. That's right. I go, I do my arms like this, and she hugs me.
But he's so funny. Sometimes I have to stand there, and I'm like, he starts rolling his eyes. I guess they itch.
I guess.
That's funny. Jen says it's freeing to forgive and not carry the ugliness anymore. It's like a bath. You have to keep doing it every day until it's done.
Boy, that's good.
Amy says little things absolutely add up. And then my poor husband looks at me like, what did I do?
Yes. That is
Amy,
so
you've
true.
got to learn. You got to learn. You can't keep them little things. You got to tell them all them little things, because that's what I used to do.
Ladies, I'm talking to you now, ladies. All right, I've talked to the men.
And then blow a head gasket over the least little bitty thing.
I've talked to the men. Ladies, I'm talking to you now. Tell us. Tell us. That's not fair. Don't do that. Don't steep. Women steep. And it just steeps like a tea bag.
It's because it's just a little thing. Just a little thing, and it adds up. If y'all wouldn't do all them little things, it wouldn't be a problem.
Well, that's
it's y'all's
true.
fault.
That's true. That's true. But it's not fair to say, oh, that was just a little thing, and then add that to another little that was a little thing.
Well, then it makes it a big thing.
See how that works?
Yeah. So, like Duncan 1900 Homestead says, little splinters fester. Oh, they fester into a big ball.
And little foxes spoil
gross.
the vineyard. Where they just jump. You know what that means? They don't. The little foxes can't jump real high. They just come up and bite. You know, the bottoms of the grapes off. They don't run off with the whole thing, and so but the whole thing dies. And so the little foxes spoil the vineyard. So be on the lookout for that. And that's those little things that fester. And you know, the title shot for the book is that I forgot it. Oh, I just forgot it. It was right there. But one of the rules is that your marriage is. Let's see. The best way to keep your marriage safe is to realize it's never safe. Protected at all costs.
Yeah, that's good.
And so write that down. I'll say that again. The best way to protect, the surest way to keep your marriage safe is to realize it's never safe. Protected at all costs.
Yes. Yeah.
So I got to get back to work on that. I don't know when it's going to be available, but I could hit the table one more time. Sorry.
Somebody had said something a while ago, and